Hello and welcome everyone to a new season. And man, it's been quite a ride. Rev Cycle Unscripted, we're gonna crack 200 episodes maybe this year, which I'm psyched about. So it's gonna be awesome. I am so grateful for all of the people that have been guests and my co-host Tina and my producer Rome. So much goes into kind of making it happen that I don't have to deal with as much anymore, which I'm so grateful for. But hopefully we're bringing great content to you all, that we are giving you something different. And my whole goal with all of this has always been talk about the things that people are talking about anyways and inside circles, but actually talk about it in public, because that's kind of what we need to do. One of my other goals has always been to highlight individuals who are doing amazing things and hear their origin stories sometimes. And some of you know that I love that part of what we do. And I still get goosebumps when I do it sometimes with people, and hearing people, what they've overcome or how they got into things or how they solved something or failed at something or some even trauma related stuff. And to me, that's always gives me just so much insight. And I think he's me motivated to keep going and to keep pushing and to keep doing this thing that, I don't get paid for, and frankly pay to do it. And that's okay. I'm okay with if that's my role. I'm still really focused this year on education and educating people and continuing the conversation. I think there's a lot happening, obviously, with AI and other things. We talk about that, Tina and I, in a fair amount on this episode. So yeah, I mean, I'm bullish about the future, but I'm also nervous about the future, and I think nervous about, in particular, our leadership and how much more I think we need to be intentional about keeping our people grounded and giving them agency to go do. And I talk a fair amount about that. I did a hot take for Cedar about that. You may have seen it. I'm sure we'll try and post that again this year. So yeah, we'll keep doing our thing. We got a bunch of episodes in the can. I'm doing some live recording at HFMA Western Region. If you're around, stop by the Acuity booth. I'd love to interview you. I actually don't know if I have a full schedule yet, which is great. I'm sure we'll be at HFMA in June, scheduling again. Got 2 forums, leaders forums again this year, one in May. If you're a VP of Rev Cycle and you're looking for something different, we do that. It's invite only, so please contact me directly. And there's no vendor spots, so if you're a vendor, please don't ask me anymore. I don't have any vendor spots yet. And we'll also be doing in the fall the same thing. And my other company, Tarpon, is doing awesome. So if you're looking for AI or automation help, please let us know. We're like a community of providers. So it's much different than anything out there right now. And yeah, I'm excited about what's been happening and excited about the year. And frankly, I'm ready to tackle it. It's going to be a good 2026. So with that, I hope that you had a great 25 and 26. Even if you may not know where it ends or where it's starting, I know great things are in store. So I know that for sure. Reach out to me as always if you have issues or questions or things you want to talk about. We'd love to take some of your topics this year, or have you be a guest in the show, which sometimes people just send me notes and they ask if they could be a guest, and here's what I want to talk about. And sometimes it just happens. So yeah, appreciate it, everyone. Thanks again. And have a great 26. Enjoy the episode. Talk to you soon.
Sometimes days can be boring. There you go. Spice it up.
A Monday night.
Monday night in Detroit. That's right.
So then we had a podcast scheduled for this morning, and our guest, who I'm not blaming, I'm sure it was, but our guest canceled, and I've been hauling to get here, and not necessarily in the best. And it's morning, it's early, just so people know. And it wasn't ideal. I would have been still sleeping. So I figured.
Since Ben is up, we may as well.
I'm up. I mean, we might as well record
take advantage of
I don't know what my brain can handle, Tina, but
I understand. Well, the reason I texted when Ben sent me this, I texted him this idea to talk about prescriptions a little bit. and simply because like it's something I'm dealing with my parents. And then I was reading about Mark Cuban and Humana potentially becoming best friends. So that's like an interesting take on things. I don't know. We could try, see where it goes.
Wait, wait. I don't know this Humana Mark Cuban thing. What are you talking about?
It's in Forbes. He went to a Forbes conference. He was speaking, and Humana was like, we want to work with your cost plus company to reduce costs for patients, which I'm like, sure.
That's interesting.
It's in healthcare finance. It ran on the 4th of December.
Oh yeah, I hadn't seen that. I've been following it. I also like the fact that you put it into ChatGPT and
Chat rolled out a whole, but you guys should see what Chat has given us.
We have to show, I don't know, it's insane. I don't even understand how it could come up with
I'll send it to Rome and he could put it in the
But the best part of
post.
They're like bonus topic types to keep your podcast fresh.
I know, he's very funny.
Rapid fire episodes. My favorite is Ask the Denials Whisperer.
We need one.
Which I am not. So
I know. I was like, who would that be?
We actually need someone. That's a good episode. We could get a denials whisperer.
Like, who is the denials whisperer?
People could send in questions like, what do you do with this?
Yeah.
Data point of the week. 3 things keeping RCM leaders up at night. Okay. But then it goes into like storytelling episodes. These are great. My worst claim ever.
That'd be fun.
A denial that taught me everything. That sounds like a Hallmark movie. Like
it does.
A bad
it does.
Hallmark
Where
movie.
A small town girl goes. She goes to work in a small town hospital.
Yeah, that denial taught me
a big
everything.
town girl goes to work in a small town hospital, falls in love with the doctor.
No,
because
it can't be the doctor. It has to be.
She has to. No, wait a minute. She has to be.
Falls in love with the the insurance rep.
She's yes, exactly. There we go. We'll get there. We write this Hallmark movie.
Yeah,
the Hallmark movie for revenue cycle.
How I survived a 180-day AR nightmare. Yeah, these are good. I don't know how they came up with these.
Well, I talked to Chat a lot about revenue cycle, so I'm helping him learn. I think it's a dude, by the way. I think my Chat GPT is masculine. I don't know why. I probably shouldn't gender.
You could change
probably
it.
Should not gender him.
You could tell it to not be be more female.
I sometimes have to. I just say like this is for a woman, or write this as if blah blah blah.
But what was your question about pharmacy? We could talk about.
Oh, well, just that. This is just an interesting scenario that has come up, and it's actually turns out it's like an actual pharmacy problem, not. Well, so my stepfather, as everyone knows, is in a lot of pain. He's had multiple back surgeries, had 9 surgeries or something, and he takes a lovely amount of drugs. My sister has moved here. She's a palliative care nurse, and he's not in palliative care, but she's here to help manage his pain and medical stuff. So she came in and she looked at his meds and she said, "Hey, I think you'd be better off taking a time release of this one thing rather than taking 4 pills a day. Take 1, and then when you have breakthrough pain, then take, the other thing. Maybe you should mention this to your doctor." So he just says it to his doctor, and his doctor's like, "Wow, your daughter's smart. That's a good idea." Which I'm like, thanks.
Oh.
Anyway, so he writes the script. They go to have it. It gets, of course, denied by his insurance. They won't cover the time release one. So, and the way they find that out is the pharmacy calls them and says, "This has been declined. We can't fill this," right? So my sister's like, "I want to get your pharmacy benefits card. Like, I'll call them and talk to them. Like, if you can give me permission, like, I'll call and talk to them and see what I can find out, because this doesn't make sense, why they're declining it." And so she actually she has taken a second job to work doing wound care at a nursing home. And so she had to have a physical and all these things. I'm sorry, it's a long story. She had to have a physical and, the various things. So it's the first time she's using her medical license, her nursing license in Michigan. So in
Gotcha.
order, she had
Yes,
to be
understood.
fingerprinted and all this. Like her license transferred, but she had to do
Yep,
these other things.
understood.
So she was at, they had asked her if she wouldn't mind also getting an updated flu vaccine and I think the COVID booster or something.
Right.
So she was getting that from the pharmacy. And while she's talking to the pharmacist, she was like, hey, what do you know about why this time-release drug would be denied by the insurer? And he said, oh, what's the insurance? She told him, and he said, oh, it's because it's a brand name. If they had offered a generic, they probably wouldn't have denied it. And my sister's name is Cindy. She doesn't care if I use it. So Cindy's like, oh, so the pharmacist could have said to my mother, the reason that like this is being declined because it's the name brand, like go back, or they could have told the doctor's office, like, this is what's happening. But none of that communication happened. So they just thought that my stepfather was being denied a medication that he needs because the insurer wouldn't pay for it, but it's actually because they just wouldn't pay for the brand name of the drug. They would pay for the generic.
But the pharmacist couldn't come
But
up
the
with
pharmacist didn't
just have
tell
a
her
generic.
that. She learned it from like a third party, like the pharmacist who was giving her flu shot. And I would thought, well, isn't that ridiculous? First of all, isn't that ridiculous? And at this point I'm like, so it feels like, because we, oftentimes, and I'm not a pharmacist and I appreciate them sometimes. But like, I'm like, isn't that like part of their job is to know those things? I don't know. Like, and when you add that into the revenue cycle of it all, right? Where you have now a denied thing from an insurer because of this, and really it's a misinformation. It's not even like a medical denial. It's just simply a communication problem. And how many of those things are communication problems? Anyway,
Well, it's not just the
my premise
communication
today.
problem, though. It's that's a good story because I'm sure it's happening all the time. But what's actually like the thing that pharmacists have become. This is actually a good question for a pharmacist that's in it every day. I'd be curious to interview them because. But what my sense is what their job is becoming is playing the intermediary of like, why isn't with the
Right.
PBMs? If people are not familiar, they should go look up what a pharmacy benefit managers are, and those companies that got created, they did not exist 15 years ago, and got created. Someone's taking a margin.
Yes, right.
Just
That's why you have to raise your
theory.
prices of your drug so that the PBM will put it on their list, so the pharmacy can carry it, so they can bill it. Like,
and then there's rebates and there's all this other stuff. Well, all these PBMs got bought by the payers. So United, Aetna, Cigna. So Chris Deacon has a whole section of like all this kind of I don't know how to describe it, like kickbacks to kickbacks
sure.
to kickbacks, like
right.
It was
all the backroom, dirtiness.
Yes, she used a great example about the railroads back in the day. So this is I actually think it's worth finding if I can find it in the book. It was who's the famous
Is it Rockefeller? One of those, like the Rockefeller. Yeah.
Yes.
I watched The Gilded Age. That's how I know.
The
on HBO. It's Julian Fellowes' follow-up to Downton Abbey, but it's Americans.
Oh yes.
And it's
yes.
The one family is like the new money railroad people.
It's so it likened it to the Rockefellers owned, I cannot remember the name of the railroad.
Sure, the one railroad, right. The East Coast.
Sorry, they
like
owned... Well, they own was it the iron production? So they own something. they basically, what they did was they then started to buy up all the parts of the system. So they bought the railroad, they bought the train, like they started to buy the distributors on both sides. Like they bought all this parts of the system. So at Chris's point is that United and most of the insurers have started to do the same thing. So what's happening, I'm getting it back to like the pharmacy. So what's happening is like, so they bought up a ton of like the nursing homes and home care and a bunch of providers. United now owns they employ like 90,000 physicians, something ridiculous, right? You're just like
Right.
90,000, like that's a crazy number. Well, when they can do that, all the dollars go to them. So if you're just the insurer, right,
Right.
you play a role, and the role is like, it's not great, and I understand, but I understand that what we're trying to do. It's not, I wouldn't say we should do that exactly, but like I understand what we're doing. But when you're the insurer and you're the provider and you're the pharmacy benefit
Right.
manager and
You're triple dipping.
you're getting all of the money.
Right. All the monies.
So it's kind of like, well, if I increase the price of this, but then I also, so she uses the term, and this is important, fiduciary duty a lot. And I think that this is where we're getting like sideways. And this is why your father-in-law,
Stepfather,
is like, it's like the, I don't want to say unintended consequence. It's the unintended consequence of someone not actually
collateral damage, right?
their
Like that's what it
fiduciary
is.
role of saying like, an insurer actually should look out for who? Their member.
The insured. Right.
Insured. What they are not, they are not doing that though. In most of these cases, what they are doing is like, how do we make a margin? And one of the ways we're going to do that is we're going to we're going to do everything we can to like cut back on what we're going to spend on pharmacy. Because things went crazy, right? But like the way that they're doing it is through the third party who's not a third party.
Right.
Who's not incentivized
right
to do the right thing. So it's just fascinating. Like Mark Cuban's point is, and he has several, is that the way that they're doing it too is killing all the pharmacies that are the independents. Like, when's the last time you saw an independent pharmacy?
We have one little tiny one here in Clarkston. Like I mean, physically, it's a very small building. It's a tiny little spot.
I think we have one in my town. I can't think of another one.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen, other than that little tiny.
I'm sure there are.
Like,
but they're basically pushing them out because then they're like saying, well, you don't have access to drug, or the cost you get is so high. It costs them more.
Right.
To like buy it because they can't even sell it for that. Like, it's just crazy.
Right. Well, that's what that blog that I've been reading is covers, that Drugstore Cowboy. It's actually really interesting. And he explains things like in a common way, like not, and he's angry. So that's also kind of fun.
He's angry.
Well, he's writing with passion. So that makes it, that much more entertaining.
But yeah, I guess my point is, and I think this is the part that like people don't fully grasp, was like, I'm not just saying like insurance is like the devil. Just because I don't believe that. The problem starts to happen is when they start owning all the systems. They ended up making Rockefeller break up all his companies and sell it. Split it into like 34 companies or something ridiculous. So it's
right, because
34. It's like,
right. He's like, what's that called? Like when you have all the parts and pieces and you
Monopoly.
Monopoly, right? Thank you.
Yeah, there's a whole game about it, and it's
there's a whole game, Tina. Not sure if you've ever. Also, apparently, like created by a woman, and everyone thinks it was a dude. Monopoly,
because there's the little guy with a hat.
Because of Parker Brothers, because Parker Brothers bought it and sold it, so they think it's like Parker Brothers. But a woman designed that game.
Yes,
just put it out there for the people.
That is fascinating to me by itself, because The other thing that I think comes up, and this is something I hadn't thought about, but like, remember when we talked to Tommy
Hmm.
Duncan,
Oh yeah,
my friend Tommy, who built this
he's great.
Medicaid HMO from scratch, like in
Hmm.
DC? Remember what he talked about? There's this thing called the medical loss ratio. And I guess I did not realize that it really became into law with ACA. It was one of the things that like got put in, and again, this is an unintended consequence. What they were trying to do was, and if those of you aren't familiar, it's like there's this thing called like an 85% rule. I think it's 85%, where 85% of insurers' costs or like has to go to paying a claim, has to go to like some kind of medical care. So what they're trying to do is like make sure that the payer isn't like taking too much, profit or not spending it on care. Ultimately, Chris makes a point in her book, which I actually never thought about, is ever since that moment, the only other lever they have to do is actually like get more top line revenue. So to get bigger and bigger, because then that's how they actually,
Right, because
and
then the 15% of more is more.
they're not necessarily incentivized for prices to go down, because then they don't have the lever, right? They don't have the lever. That's actually less revenue for them. I mean, this is crazy. Who would have thought this? But the other thing I think was always interesting about that, because Tommy told the story, and we should have Tommy on again, but how he's like, I figured out the game. The game is actually, if I manage and I actively manage my 5% of my people who are really like 80% of my cost, and he's talking about members, right? Patients, in a good way. He's not saying this is a good thing. He's actually putting nurses
He's like,
on
let's pay
task,
attention to those who have
because
the most
those
need.
people are at risk.
Right.
If they go to the ER, I know they cost me $5,000, and if they go to the ER, they're likely going to go. If they become an inpatient, they're gonna there's a 50 it's a 50 grand, or it's like 100 grand. It's like, he's like, instantaneously. But if I can keep them out of the hospital, because I can making sure their meds, I'm taking their appointments. And remember, he started to figure out, he got his medical loss ratio down to like 56%, or less than 50%. But the thing that wasn't, and that's how he got in trouble. But he shouldn't have gotten in trouble, because ultimately he was actually like paying claims on time, way better than his competitors, and not denying claims. He was just like, we're less using less care. Its utilization was the
And yes, because you were taking care of your patients. Like right, the people
exactly.
were well, which, as we all know, there's no money in health.
There's no money in health,
That's right.
except there could be in this
There
scenario.
could no, there totally could be.
So it's just as fascinating. Like, well, so if you don't know the rest of the story, people like they forced him. The other Medicaid HMO plans got together, and they got politically, like, got enough political consensus and pressure that they forced him to sell it. And I'm
Because it made
sure
them look bad.
they're all back to like normal,
Right.
doing terrible, not the same work. So it's this fascinating like case that I didn't really understand, that the medical loss ratio came from ACA, but it also has all these unintended consequences. And so you could see how people's fees are going to go up, like their premiums. My premium went up by
You said
50%,
ridiculous.
60%, 40% or something.
Yeah. I just think like and I know this is Tina hippie hugging trees, bleeding heart, compassion girl. It just makes me sad because I guess because I think it shouldn't be about money, right? It shouldn't be about profit. I know that's the world we live in. I know. Talk to me, Tina. What, you don't like money? Of course I like money, but not at the expense of like someone suffering for, for that. I don't know. Like there's like what's the moral and ethical implication of all of this? Do they just, how does how do they put their heads down and sleep at night on their very comfortable pillows?
Yo, it's a very comfortable
It
bed
was
and
very
pillows.
expensive bed. I sleep in a very expensive bed, Tina. That's how I do it. You know what I mean?
Well,
You know what I
no,
mean? Like, no, I just think
I
like,
know what
isn't there
she's saying. And
some like
she
grand like
writes.
human thing we're missing?
No, I get it. And my criticism of Chris, and I would tell her this when we do the podcast, is I think she writes very like there's parts of this like where it's like the health system is doing this nefarious thing.
Mm.
And
Well, I don't think
and
it's
I
like I
well
think it's like a wheel spinning, right? And it just gets
well, I do
faster
think
and
that there are
faster,
people that
right?
are do nefarious things. So that's
Sure.
100% true. Yes. Yes. Of
Right.
course.
Everybody listen to Dr. Death. We know. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes. And there's a bunch of those cases where there's
Yeah.
a doctor, she references two of them, one that's doing uh spinal surgeries, and he did, or stents, it was a stents, and there was like he had done like 500 stents that people didn't need, and they all thought he was this like great doctor, and he's like people turned up, people that had like a 10% blockage, and they told him they had 90%. There's stuff like that. So yes, there's and
That's
insurers have
nefarious.
created systems in which they would catch people like that, and I would agree
Hmm.
that needs to happen.
Right.
There's a doctor here in Michigan that famously told people they had cancer and gave them. That's the second season of Dr. Death, actually,
Hmm.
is the doctor here in Detroit.
Right.
So, but I think what happens in this is like it's this generalization of like they're doing this, they're upcoding, and she has a whole section in that about that. And my point is like, okay, have you don't know any coders then, because
Right.
I know a bunch of coders. I've never met a single coder who
Right.
is a gray area ever in my whole in my whole life, and I've met hundreds, maybe thousands. So I don't believe that to be the case. I think that most of the stuff is a systemic, like you're saying, the wheel. There's a systemic thing of like, yeah, my incentives are messed up, and it's a health systems are like giant uh cruise ships.
Hmm.
They don't move
Right.
fast, and they don't do a lot of nimble
Right. It takes a
things.
long time to turn.
Yeah,
Turn.
and it's like, and it's kind of like got its own infrastructure. It's its own city. It's just like probably like a cruise ship, right? You can't make big changes. You're trying to like get all the things done, and
Right. And by the time the change you
crap.
make here trickles down to over there,
Exactly.
then just time to make another change.
Yes. No, that's exactly what it is. So I think some of that stuff is like it's just this. It's much more complicated. She's not making it less complicated. I'm just saying it's much more like that's part of the system where it starts to get, I think, back to my point about the, medical loss ratio being part of it, and in combination with the insurers getting so large and buying all kinds of and getting into the care business. Now all those dollars go to them.
Right. Well, it's like a conflict of interest. It would, you know what I mean? Isn't it like in some sense?
Yes, and
You are both
it's
my
like,
right. I'm both. You are both. I am both your doctor and your biller and you know what I mean, and your
but they
insurer, and
broke up
I'm
the
going to decide.
monopoly.
Right. It's
But
insane.
my other point too, maybe, and I've been thinking a lot about this, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, when we get Chris here. I think part of this is also the consolidation amongst health systems or hospitals turning into health systems, turning
Yes.
into like I'm buying this other health system, or I'm merging with this other one, or buying these hospitals. I'm talking to so many people that like that's what's happening. I think they're becoming I think they've kind of like done some of this to themselves, right? So they're becoming these large enigmas. They think they're going to get all this power. And I think some of that may be true, to fight the payers who also are consolidated, right? But it's almost like, well, now the health system isn't a local thing.
Right. Like we talked about with Jonathan, right? Our Beaumont doctor, right?
Our Beaumont Nudge? Oh,
Remember, because I was like, remember the Beaumont doctors, right?
yes.
And now it's Corwell or whatever, and there's Corwell everywhere, and and I have no
But
connection to that,
but that's
right?
also
Like,
my point. Like, so insurers are gonna start buying up this. They're gonna do the whole like the whole cycle. If you
mhm.
like the whole, they're doing the whole cycle. They bought Oak Street, and they'll see, and like they have CVS, and Aetna owns all these things, right? Well, health systems can't do the same thing. Like, they're doing the same thing, then we're basically just creating two different versions of the same thing,
Right.
where it's like, well, I own the health plan now. And I'll be critical. I can be critical of like the Corewell thing here in Michigan. If you're not familiar, I'm not critical of the people. I know the people pretty well, but there was a merger of Beaumont, which is in Detroit, and Spectrum, which is in Grand Rapids. Those are very different markets and very and not close to each other. That was it,
Right.
2.5 hours apart.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not close to each other.
Right.
And
And like even from a cultural standpoint, they're kind of
no,
really different.
very very different
Really.
populations and very different,
Yes.
just different, which is no surprise, and that's like fine. When they were proposing the merger, this is going to go back in time, but one of my biggest issues is that Spectrum was a controversial. In fact, I studied this case in graduate school in my law class, right? Spectrum was a merger of two health systems, two big hospitals in Grand Rapids that created 85% market share, or like 80% market share. It was Butterworth and Blodgett were the two hospitals, okay? If anyone lives in Grand Rapids listening to this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or in Michigan. It was very controversial at the time. The government was basically coming in and saying, this is a monopoly. We're not going to let this happen. There was a bunch of like legal, it was arguing. It was, you know, like all this positioning, all this political, you know, it was a big deal. And they eventually allowed it to happen. Now, this is the early days of like hospital consolidation. So they allowed it to happen, but with stipulations. And a couple of the stipulations were that they never leave that area.
Oh,
that
sure.
they would not merge with
Right.
anyone else, and they would still serve in the primary area, and they would have to like keep prices down, and like there's a bunch of stuff like there was a bunch of stipulations. And I know it was a long time ago, so it wasn't like right. So I get it was a long time ago when this started to happen. I was like, does anyone like are people not remembering the fact that they actually
there's rules around what happened then.
cannot do this? They signed covenants and contracts that would say you cannot merge with another organization. And in fact, this is a fascinating thing. I like this story because it's very real. And so one of the board members who was a current board member and a board member during that time when the Butterworth Blodgett thing happened, he writes this open letter basically and has it published in the whatever Grand Rapids newspaper is. I don't remember. It doesn't matter.
I think it's just the Grand Rapids Press.
Is it? Okay, that makes sense.
I think so.
He writes an open letter basically stating this exact thing I just said.
Oh.
We made these covenants.
We made a deal, right?
We made this deal, and part of that deal was that we would not do these things. We would have a local board. We would always stay local. It didn't matter. So like, at the end of the day, FTC, like they let it happen. They let happen. They let it happen again.
Are you looking for a judgment-free revenue cycle space? Do you want to expand your revenue management skills and learn insider strategies? Check out RevCycle 101. Unlock the foundations of healthcare finance with RevCycle 101, a comprehensive course designed to give anyone, from a recent graduate taking their first professional steps to a seasoned sales leader refining their expertise, the clarity and confidence to excel in revenue cycle management. Through easy-to-understand terminology, practical tools, and proven methods, this course demystifies the complexities of the revenue cycle. It equips you with the skills to drive results, optimize operational efficiency, and significantly advance your career in the shifting realities of today's healthcare industry. Click the link in the description for more information. Now back to the show.
And I say this story because I feel like it's like, well, okay, so now there's no local board. Think about just the board. Okay, like a board in a local community hospital. When I worked at Borges in Kalamazoo, there's two hospitals, okay? Borges's board was made up of the sisters and a bunch of local business people, the president of the college at Western Michigan that was in town. I mean, like, all people that were like can hold them accountable because they live in the town.
Right.
Just,
Right.
does
And
anyone
they're
I mean,
invested in the people,
I
right?
feel like I'm taking crazy pills here, but I'm like,
You and your crazy pills.
now what we have is scenarios where let's just take Providence, for example. I mean, you take any of them. There's so many to choose from that have all kinds of hospitals, all kinds of care being delivered in all kinds of communities. If I take the board of those, that board is a board of like Best Buy now, where all they're really caring about is revenue. Is the company healthy? Are we investing? They can't care about their local community because that doesn't exist anymore. I find it just fascinating that like then they start to argue like, oh, you're not treating hospitals fair. I'm like, you did this to yourselves. You became this large business.
You became the thing you don't like, right? Ultimately, the thing they are railing against, they have.
Right. So it's like
Frankenstein. Who was really the monster?
who's really the monster?
You know?
Because it's like if I go back to, and Chris is the same thing in her book. She receives care. She says care happens. She's like, I still believe that because she lives in London. So she's like, I still believe American healthcare. If you're sick or have an emergency, there's no other better place in the world. And I would agree to 100%. Now, does it have its challenges about where I get, how I get meds I get, and like
Right.
you have to fight for yourself? Of course, that is unfortunate, but it's true. However, it's like, so if we just got back to the care piece, which is what most, I think, local hospital physicians only care about. I still believe that. I don't think that's not true.
Right.
It's just now they're giant enigma corporations. So it's no wonder that we're getting attacked. Like we're like health systems and providers are getting attacked in Washington because that's what happens when you become a big,
Right.
you're like a target.
Well, and
all
too,
that
and
state
I think,
neutrality, all that stuff that you were fighting
right.
for, it's like you're not local anymore.
Right. And I think too, like from a consumer standpoint or from a patient standpoint, right, you are looking like you call it care, right? which has other implications. And I think when it becomes more about dollars and cents, it's almost worse, right? It's like the person who tells you they love you and also smacks you in the face. You know what I mean? It's like that, right? Like it's you're not getting the, you call it care, but then it's also this, where's the love? I guess. So I think where I would land. It was very fun. I had to take my son to the doctor, and we went to McLaren here because that's where like our physician's office is, and literally there was no place to park. Like there were people. There's a residential street that's like behind it. Like they were double parked on the residential street. They were parked on the grass. And I had a call with the client afterwards. And I said, if this were a shopping mall, we'd be having a banner retail year. So somebody's making money. And I'd like to know who. Because it was insane. Like on a Monday morning at 10 a.m., like I had to drop him off at the door and drive around for 10 minutes to find a parking spot. Like, it was, I was like, clearly something's happening. I know, well, he didn't either. It's fine. But I was like, clearly something, there's people here. There's people spending, right? There's people engaging with the healthcare system. So what does that mean? When we talk about, people like systems failing and, the money and blah, blah, margins are so slim. But then I look at that parking lot and I'm like, okay.
Well, I do.
I mean, I know it's true. I'm not saying that I know it's not true. I think if I'm just a regular Joe and I look at that, I think these hospitals are crying poor, and that's ridiculous because, like, look at this, right? Like, I think like there's a media like a perception problem.
Yeah, but
for the average consumer, not.
I understand, but like Rite Aid was busy.
Yeah. Well, I
and
know
then
my
it's
rating
gone.
wasn't. I hate.
I know, but then it was gone.
I was never paid. That's true.
Overnight, it was gone. So I
That's true.
think that
I know.
you can
I'm
still
saying I feel like
that can still happen.
if right, it was as if like it was Black Friday at McLaren that day. People were getting deals. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was
I
crazy.
don't
I
know
was like, what's happening? Um,
I think that there's also this piece of like when I was coming out of graduate school, there was this famous nun sister who is part of like um who's I can't remember what she's part. Anyway, there is this quote that's used a lot. There's like no margin, no mission. No
mhm,
mission, no margin, no mission.
sure.
And because the sisters, like if I was part of like the Sisters of Saint Joseph and Daughters of Charity came together, like this is Ascension Health
Hmm.
now. Like that was early on.
Sure.
They Some of them ran it like you'd want them to run it,
Hmm.
and that wasn't working because they just weren't making money, and so it's like you have
Hmm.
to make some money to reinvest in capital. Like
Right.
even if you're a nonprofit, you need to make 4% is like what the people would typically say is like 4% of your operating margin to reinvest in capital to be able
Hmm.
to like. Well, I think that's that's now been used forever, but it's like it also was probably a turning point of like we are going to turn these into a capitalistic kind of like economy
Hmm.
and turn it into a business. Which it had always been a business, so that's not
Right.
necessarily true. And I think you
Right.
can do this. I still think there's a way to do it without making it into this like um I don't know, like it almost feels like it feels a little bit like Succession.
Great show.
And there's good, if you've seen the show, it's like there's a family that's just like wealthy and they just keep trying to like make
Right.
this
It's a power
huge
play all the time. Everything's a
enterprise
right.
into a bigger enterprise, into a larger enterprise, these deals. And there's a couple like real examples of that happening real time in health systems. So like Steward was a classic example. If you're not familiar, go look at it. It's terrible that the CEO and it was just this whole shady, like I'm building this enterprise and look at my yachts and my, it's like, what? Like that's what and he ran those places into the ground. So I I think it's just this one thing where it's like I think people got over their skis and then they're like and then you get CEOs who are going to make, you know, a bunch of those health system CEOs are making 10 million plus a year. Now I get it, they don't have stock options and stuff like that. I think but I think I don't know if that's like what we want.
Right.
I
Right.
don't
Well,
know.
and I don't know. I struggle with just because it's like justify like so you're the CEO and you get a $10 million salary. Ben Regal, you're now the CEO. You're like, I am, Tina. Thank you. Um,
Oh, I wouldn't want that job, but yes.
no, no,
Okay.
no. I know I'm not suggesting you would, but like, what are we paying for with that $10 million? Like, I guess these are the things I'd want to know. Like, what am I paying for? Like, what are you going to do for me, man? Because, like, I think when you put someone in a job, like, when I look what people go through to get a job that pays $100,000 a year, like, I'm assuming a CEO goes through some of that. Like,
No, I
so
do. And it's a hard
yeah, like,
job. I'm not saying I'm gonna be
is it
clear.
just the stress? Is it like being
It
president
is a
where you're
very
like,
difficult job and it's a
yeah,
public job.
yeah.
So I'm not saying that those people shouldn't be compensated
Oh,
for having
I
a
know. I'm
very
just saying, like,
public job.
I have a hard time conceptualizing, like,
No,
what
I
is that
get it.
$10 million buying?
I totally understand.
Yeah.
But I think that there could be other ways to structure so that that job does have a bunch of benefits that people would be, like enticed enough to do. And it doesn't have to be just, compensation. So I don't know. I know it's like a pipe dream, but it's also like I feel like some of this we argue about because I'm always advocating for the health system. I used to work in one. I advocate for the provider side, but we're not we're complicit in this too.
Sure. Sure.
And I think a lot of people's CEOs wanted to leave their legacy. This is what actually drives me crazy. I've said this many times. They want to leave their legacy, and their legacy is either I built a tower, right? So I built this
Dude,
huge
you're so
tower, and look what
weird.
I did. Or I was right. There's
No,
lots
I
of
know. There's so many
so many areas we go in there, but
so many things I could say right now, but I'm not going to.
or I merged these two health systems where I bought a look at how
Like I
much
made this
bigger
big right.
the enterprise is. That's my legacy. And I'm like, you don't need that legacy. Like, we don't need to have
Right.
that
You're
legacy.
looking at the wrong
How
prize,
about you
friend.
just have a great hospital or company that like
Takes care of
employees love
people
to do
and
there, and people they take care of people, and we look at all we did for our community. And I know they do. I know they do some of that, but like this is where it's like you have got to like get your priorities straight. And this is where I think if I go back to like full circle, a local board would keep you straight.
right. No, I
A
think you're
local
right.
board of local people that care are gonna make sure your ass is doing what it should be doing,
Right.
and they will fire you if you're not. I think maybe a good example is like Henry Ford here. Like that's a local board. Yes, they're large, but they are academic. They have a very clear mission, and it's to serve the people of Detroit. And so I do think like there are organizations like that. So I don't know. It's just very interesting. We got on a whole tangent
It's a
here.
complicated world we live in.
It's complex.
That's how I feel all the time.
But we've learned nothing that monopolies are bad. Like
That's right. Did we learn
we
nothing from
learned
that board
nothing
game? Right.
over years and years and years. Like this
Right.
is like the same thing. It's the Rockefellers all over again. United is the Rockefellers all over again. Except now it's not one person. This is all the other issue. It's like it's not one person. It's like this enigma of people and
Right. So
investors
you
and
can't like
stockholders, and you're like,
right, you can't just like slap a label on like that person, right? It's this evolving blob.
oh, did you see the latest like United CEO saying like we got to get uh
We got to
he
get
said
what?
something so oh my god, I actually need to find it because it's so ridiculous. He
No.
said so many things. This is
You
coming up
said
with
so many crazy things. We
so
can't
many
even.
ludicrous things.
It's like I feel like there's several people you could say, what crazy thing did so and so
But the
say?
basic premise was that he was like, we need to get like fired up about or like radical or something about or jazzed up about something. You know, it was like
Jazzed up. Wow.
about the business again. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So the other thing that's interesting is my sister for her full-time job does utilization review because she's an RN.
Yeah.
So that's also really interesting. She's like, I feel like I'm getting a whole different like kind of angle on all the things we talk about just from talking with her.
Yeah. That whole job
this,
is like,
all
this
the
is
stuff she
medically
sees.
necessary. Here's why it's medically necessary. And it's fighting back. And then, okay, but how many days can we get now?
Well, and apparently there's like all kinds of, I didn't know this, like this is a thing she was talking about the other day. Apparently there's like doctors or a group that you can hire and you pay them like $300 to $500 if you can't answer the question and they review it. And she's like, we spend like millions of dollars on this and then they don't keep like her company. And I don't know the name of it, so I won't do that. But they don't like have a vault of all that information that they've gathered. So they keep going back to the well and spending the money instead of building their own like database of the information they've received. So, there's more of your dollars at work, everybody.
Well, that one also might be like, well, we had our physician advisor review it, and here's what they said, and then that's the case, right? That they actually
Right.
reviewed it, and they're like, so then
Yeah, but
the
to keep
payer
like
would
that so they
then,
don't have to
yeah,
go
but the
back
payer
to
would
the
like, yeah, but then it wouldn't be that case specific, right?
right. But
But
she's like,
yeah, I don't know.
it's very, she just tells me like crazy stories, things she sees,
That's crazy.
like, it's like, I'm like, I maybe don't want to know. It's true. I maybe don't want to know.
All right. Well, I don't know if we had good. I don't know if we had good
I don't
content
know.
here,
Rome
but
will edit it into something maybe short and sweet. Maybe it'll be like a 45-minute,
yeah,
really
Rome's got us.
concise.
All
Will
right,
sound
Rome,
great.
figure it out. Do your magic.
He's a magical man.
All right, I'm gonna
Well,
stop.
excellent. Well, I hope you have a good day of recovery.